What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the after credits scene. We are talking about the finale of Ms. Marvel. Before we go any further, please like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notifications so when we drop new content, you'll be the first one to know about it. Then share this sucker all across the multiverse. I don't know about you guys. I thought this show ended up really well. A lot of my predictions for episode 6 were right on the money. I'm gonna start off by talking about something that bothered me from episode 5, but I think I have a fairly decent explanation for, and some of it was even further confirmed with the previously on section of the finale. So, and it just remains to be seen how they handle that. So, but episode 5 had some time travel elements to it. It seems that those time travel elements, because of the loop that it created, seemed to break some in-game rules because Kamala traveled to the past and ended up doing something that obviously didn't change the future, but it was something that she couldn't have done the very first time because she didn't have powers in order to do it. So how did it happen to start creating that loop? And so, meaning how did she get the bangle the first time if she wasn't there in the past with powers to help her grandmother escape India? So I've heard lots of explanations on TikTok and other places. If you've got another theory, please drop it in the comments so that we can talk about it here too. But I think, obviously this is going to seem like an oversimplification, but I think it's easy enough to just explain it with the bangle. And I don't mean just that it's something in the Noor dimension and the way these dimensions work is just, we just don't understand. But the previously on section, in addition to the way that they cut the episode in episode 5, seemed to indicate that the inscription on the bangle was possibly put there by Aisha herself, or that it was something that was on there that allowed Aisha to summon the bangle. When Kamala ends up finding her grandmother, or pardon me, her great-grandmother, when she finds Aisha in the past, Aisha says, oh great, the bangle worked, and she calls her Sana. So Aisha is not attempting to summon somebody specifically in the form of Kamala, or use that power. She's attempting to summon the bangle, which in her mind is connected to Sana. Instead, it summons Kamala, who at the same time is fighting with Najma in the future. Now, whether or not Najma hitting the bangle caused something there and made those things cross over, or it was simply the power of the Noor and the power of the bangle and Aisha using her abilities to do that, I think that the fact that Kamala was wearing the bangle is irrelevant. If Kamran or someone else had been wearing the bangle, them getting pulled into the past with that bangle would have started the time loop and caused that to happen. So the bangle itself is the transfer piece. The bangle has always been there. So think of it like the Infinity Stone that's always been there, that instead of it jumping from the past to the future and then Captain America bringing it back to the last point it was at, imagine that the bangle has always been in the timeline and the bangle is going back and doing something and then going back to where it came from. The person attached to the bangle is irrelevant. The fact that it's Kamala is what was throwing me for a loop, because it being Kamala means that Kamala's the one that has to have powers, but if the bangle is something that would have granted powers or granted that ability to anybody, then it didn't really matter. So that's the explanation I'm going with right now. The previously on Ms. Marvel at the beginning of episode 6 seemed to talk about that a little bit and showed you some of those elements. Really highlighted the bangle and not Kamala herself, which is something we'll talk about with reference to the cameo at the end of this episode and the after credits scene as well, because it references the bangle probably more than any kind of power that Kamala has. So getting right into the episode though, I thought the little touches they put in this episode to help Kamala become Ms. Marvel were really great in keeping the story connected with family and keeping the story connected with some other themes here that I'll mention in a second that I actually didn't piece together to begin with until you saw them in a larger format in this episode. So I love that her mom was the one that made her outfit. She modeled the lightning symbol off of Kamala's broken necklace, and then gave her an outfit that highlighted her Pakistani heritage, was obviously outspoken or flashy, but also, as far as her mother was concerned, was not just tight spandex. And so I thought utilizing those elements in order to make an outfit that was comic accurate was really great. And then seeing her in the entire outfit was really cool, especially in some different comic accurate shots. Her sitting on top of the light post at the end of the episode, her looking in the mirror and giving that smirk. I would bet you money that Iman Vellani practiced that over and over to make sure she got that just right, because and props to the acting on that too, because that look, that smirk was Miss Marvel from the comics to a T. It was perfect. So those little things, those little elements were great. The fact that her dad at the end of the episode explains to her where her name comes from. That is also a nod to some things in the comics as well, although they add a little bit to it. When he says, what's a word or a phrase, and he kind of goes through wonder or marvel, and he calls her his own little Miss Marvel. I think that was really cool and a really awesome way to bring them together, to show that they are trying to be accepting of who she is and trusting of her. I love that they didn't just throw her into a scenario after 5 episodes of saying, we don't trust you, where are you at, you're hiding, you're running away, you're in trouble, you're grounded, you're all these things, we're scared for you, and just go off and put yourself in danger. But the little scene where they send her brother to the school to be her chaperone to make sure that she's safe was a really cool way to not only pull him in to the same field of acceptance, but also kind of hint at, okay, we're still concerned for her, we still care about her. The theme that I thought all of those things pulled together a little better, her mom making the outfit, her dad lending his story to her namesake, her brother showing up, and then the entire community surrounding her, was this idea that if you go back and watch the series again, heroes bring people together. It's the thing that Kamala loves about Captain Marvel. It's the theme of Avengers Con, that heroes bring people together, and everybody looks up to their heroes. While a movie like Thor: Love and Thunder does some twists with that, with regard to some of the gods in the Pantheon, Miss Marvel leaned really heavy into the other side of that heroes bring people together, and I thought that was really, really cool. The scenes at the school, the scenes at the mosque, where you have these two sides who don't see eye to eye. The same thing they did when Kamran finds out that his mother has died, and he ends up fighting Kamala for a little bit. That heroes bring people together, even in the midst of a showdown where both sides are wanting the same thing, but they just don't see eye to eye. Particularly with the police officers surrounding the community in Jersey City, and then Damage Control on the other side of that having their own little showdown where the Damage Control guy who is back at the office is telling the one on the ground, stand down, don't do this, this is not good. I thought that the pitting these different characters against each other and kind of being able to do that while showing all of these different facets was actually really, really well written, and for the series to wrap up that way was really awesome. There was, just Easter egg wise, if you're interested in some Easter eggs, the shawarma truck, the food truck, falafel truck, the falafel truck has a QR code on it right at the beginning. Haven't had a chance to click on that QR code yet, but I'm willing to bet it goes to a Marvel comic book page that has some really cool things from this episode and some comic panels that you can probably check out. As far as wrapping up the show, I thought it did a really great job. One of the things in my prediction video that I wanted you guys to look out for was how the cameo and how other things in the show would set up the future of the MCU and would set up the Marvels movie. So 2 things in particular we're going to talk about before we wrap up here because I thought they're really important. Like I said, I loved the whole episode. I liked where they went with it. I liked how they wrapped up this story, but how they moved ahead into other stories. So obviously, Bruno is going to be going to Caltech for a while. Kamala is still finishing high school, but there at the end, particularly in the after credits scene, before the after credits scene, mind you, pardon me, Bruno has a small interaction with Kamala talking about how he had still been looking at her powers and trying to figure them out, and that obviously there were some things that had to do with the neurodimension and there were some powers there, but that Kamala had some kind of difference in her genetic makeup. And he pauses, and at first I thought, oh, he's gonna say it was something that was inhuman. Because in the comics, she is an inhuman. She gets her powers unlocked from crossing paths with Terrigen Mist. And they made some hints to that when the clandestines approach the Veil and they get shrouded in its rock-like substance. There was a little bit of a hint to that, but when he said mutation, you hear the X-Men 97 music, which right off the bat would assume that, oh, Marvel's going to turn Miss Marvel into a mutant. I don't necessarily think that's the case for a couple of reasons. One, in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, they already they introduced Inhumans and X-Men in the same shot whenever they introduced the Illuminati in Earth 838. So take heart that the writers, Kevin Feige and others, are fully aware that they are trying to introduce Inhumans and mutants into the MCU. Furthermore, just because Bruno doesn't know to call Kamala's genetic disorder or whatever a mutation, or doesn't know to call it an inhuman thing but calls it a mutation, is not wrong. It is a mutation. It's just, I think, within the realm of mutants, you could make an argument that Inhumans are also mutants. Their powers look and work and act the same. However, they got their powers in a different way. This might also set up another little Secret Wars type thing. You have some mutants, you have people that are Inhumans, and even the way Kamala responds to it, it's just another label. Are you a mutant? Are you an Inhuman? It doesn't matter. They will make that distinction, I think, moving forward, that somehow some people get their powers this way and they're considered Inhumans, and some people are born with it and they're this way. Now, how that plays out and how Kamala fits into that is anybody's guess, but they are sowing the seeds of mutants and Inhumans in the MCU right now. So, like I said, what that looks like is anybody's guess. Taking that and moving into the after credit scene, Kamala sits down on her bed. The bangle starts pulsing before Kamala seemingly turns into turns into Captain Marvel. We get our cameo with Brie Larson, and then a couple of things there. In the comics, one of the abilities that Kamala has is to alter her appearance to look like anybody else. Her powers that are stretchy powers in the comic books, which we got a little bit of a glimpse of a few times in this show, especially at the end here. Kamala jumps down off of a school roof and her body stretches before there's ever any kind of hard light surrounding her. So some of those things are there, but in the comics, one of the things that comes along with those stretchy powers is the ability to alter her body, her face, to look like anybody else. Seemingly, that after credit scene would assume that she has done that or it happened accidentally. However, there's no indication that there was a mirror in the room for Kamala to look around and realize that she looked like somebody new, except that she looks at her hands. Now, that could have been the case, that she looks at her hands and that she realizes, oh, I'm suddenly a white woman. But I think the bigger giveaway is not only that the bangle glows before anything happens. Kamala's not doing anything to make that happen. And then the what seems to be some kind of teleporting thing that knocks her into the closet that Brie Larson then comes out of. But additionally, if you think about it, Kamala would only know Ms. Marvel from the costumes that she's seen her in. The costume that Brie Larson shows up in is not a costume that we have seen before, and not a costume that Kamala would have seen before. Now, she is an artist, so she could have drawn her any way she wanted to, but you'd think that she would draw her the way she's seen her before, rather than changing those things up. Now, that could be a stretch. As an artist, she could have, well, what if she had a costume like this? What if she had a costume like that? But if she's going to try to recreate that somehow, I don't think that would have happened either. If you take the end credit scene as something having to do with the bangle, that the bangle somehow did that, and couple that with how Kamala gets connected with Captain Marvel and others in the Marvels movie, and also connect that with the theory that I threw out at the beginning of our video here about how the bangle assisted in some kind of time travel thing, that Aisha was able to call Kamala to another place with the power of the bangle, and perhaps the power of the past bangle as well. You could say that perhaps the bangle allowed Kamala to teleport someplace else if there was another bangle present. That holds true with the theory for the past. Aisha had access to another bangle, even though it was the exact same bangle. She had access to that bangle. When she called it, because of her connection to Kamala, because of what was going on in the future, that bangle and the past bangle worked together to call Kamala to the past. If Captain Marvel has that other bangle somewhere, comes across that other bangle, or someone else has that bangle, that could explain how Kamala gets shot someplace else, and wherever Captain Marvel is, she gets shot back another direction. I think that would be a really good setup for Captain Marvel. How do these two characters cross paths? In the comic books, there is one path where Kamala, in an attempt to disguise herself, ends up looking like Captain Marvel, and everybody thinks that she's Captain Marvel, and so all these things that she's doing under the guise of Captain Marvel ends up drawing the real Captain Marvel to Jersey City, and that's how they cross paths. That could still happen, but I think this scenario is much more likely in that somehow the bangle has teleported Kamala to someplace else. Brie Larson's Captain Marvel is then teleported to where Kamala is, and she has to figure it out. It would help her get connected with Teyonah Parrish a lot quicker, because she is in New Jersey, and the last time we saw Teyonah Parrish, she was in New Jersey. And then go off to find Kamala wherever she went. That these characters are in different places and they're fighting different battles and things are going on. I think will be a really good connection to the future movie. So we'll have to wait and see, but that seems like a plausible possibility. I'm curious what you guys think about not just this episode, but those theories and this entire series. For me, this series is probably in my top 5, but very low on the list, 4 or 5, somewhere around Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision range. I would still put Moon Knight, Loki, and Hawkeye above this series, just for their story, their directing, and their consistency. I would put Ms. Marvel somewhere around here with Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. So all of those shows, equally great shows. In my ranking system, I'm ranking, shows that are 7 or 8 against each other. I'm not saying that something like WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a 2 or a 3. They were excellent shows, just that's where I put them. So what do you guys think? Tell us in the comments. Like and subscribe to the channel. Share this thing all over the multiverse with everyone you know, and check out some of our other content over here. As always, we got a lot of stuff you can sink your teeth into, and when the next one drops, we'll catch you right back here. Later, guys.